resources, it's become much, much easier to deploy resources, deploy websites, etc. I know that back now when I'm in college, I could easily spin up a website in the matter of seconds. And this can lead to a lot of issues for certain organizations and companies. For example, maybe certain companies and organizations lead to shadow IT or deploying websites without necessarily letting the security or IT team know, right? Maybe the marketing team wanted to spin up a new website or new web page to kind of help their new ad campaign or something like that, right? So the main kind of challenges that we're trying to solve here are telling you what you don't know about yourself, right? Maybe you have this domain that expired and you forgot about, or this IP address that you kind of are still serving certain, information on. We're trying to tell you what you don't know about yourself. So to combat that rapid digital growth and give you that visibility, that's what we try to do. The second half of what we're trying to do here is also tell you what risks are associated with you, right? Once you know who you actually are from the outside in, from the internet point of view, we also try to tell you what vulnerabilities and risks you might have. Those are kind of like the main modern day challenges we're trying to solve here and make sure that you guys can find any gaps proactively in your external attack surface to seal them, remediate them to before a maybe a potentially malicious actor kind of comes in and looks at it. And let me be clear again, this information that we kind of collect is from the internet. So if we're able to see it, most likely a malicious user or malicious actor is also able to see it. So the crux of our solution in telling you what you don't know about yourself is actually our discovery algorithm. And the way that works is that it leverages the structure and the graph structure of the internet to identify what you look like on the internet currently. So what we do in the background is that we graph and update the internet on a daily basis. And then we also then, based on that, we can build out your external attack surface based on whatever information you might provide to us. So let's say that you gave us a domain seed for, let's say I was Microsoft and I wanted to see what my external attack surface was. I might give Microsoft.com, right? And say like, okay, this is what I know about myself. This is my limited knowledge. Tell me what other things are associated with this, right? So maybe from the domain, I can find the host, and then from that host, I can find what IP address that resolves to. I can then find the IP block the IP address is a part of. And then maybe in that IP block, I see another IP address, which kind of also serves and hosts all these other hosts. This goes into domains, contacts, etc. And as this discovery recursive algorithm kind of keeps going, you can kind of build out that complete inventory of your external attack surface in Defender EASM. And so with that kind of done is then after you've discovered your assets, alongside just telling you that, this domain's part of it, this IP address is part of it, we also collect a lot of metadata that is collected through sensors and crawlers on these domains, IP addresses, IP blocks, ASNs, etc. And we can collect all the risk associated information that you might want to know, or just general metadata that could be helpful in your investigations. Examples of this might be what web components are running on this particular page or host, right? Do you have jQuery running on it? Do you have Apache running on it? Where is it hosted? Is it hosted on Microsoft Azure? Is it hosted on AWS? Is it hosted on Google Cloud? Is it hosted on some other hosting provider? And the list kind of goes on and on. IP reputation, who is information, and as well as we also give uh, with that discovery side, you can also delve into what we can help you with prioritizing, right? While we do tell you what you don't know about yourself, you also want to know what should I focus on, right? You don't want to be kind of thrown into the deep end without giving a plan of action. So we also help prioritize certain things about with vulnerabilities and CVEs that might be impacting these assets. So we also have sensors and crawlers on maybe this CVE is detected on this particular domain, or these like this high priority insight from our coveted Microsoft research team who's been putting together detections, remediation steps, and overall descriptions on certain vulnerabilities. We also use those detections and then provide them to you as soon as possible. So that helps you prioritize, what assets might have more severe risks, and so that they need to be mitigated and removed first. Also, aside from specific CVEs, specific insights, there might be things surrounding like overall compliance or just general good practices, right? It's not necessarily a vulnerability to have, you know, certain security posture things, but they are helpful in making sure you're GDPR compliant or that you're less prone to a certain attack, things like that. And then lastly, we help you secure your attack surface. So after you might have mitigated this risk or mitigated the CVE or vulnerability, we make sure that that will come into our discovery algorithm, which is run on a weekly basis. So then your Defender EASM kind of view of your attack surface will be updated at that weekly interval. And then it can be shown that, hey, your attack surface is becoming better in this sense, less exposure, things like that. I kind of want to just pause here for questions on Defender EASM as a tool, any of the parts that I kind of mentioned about the discovery algorithm, what we detect, uh, anything like that. Kind of want to pause here for that.
I did just
Um,
drop a poll also, Soham, just, just for us to understand, like, if you have heard of this, not heard of this. So it would be great if you could help us with the polls. Thank you.
yeah. All right. Okay. And I can then move into what our security copilot kind of integration is and what that looks like. So in our Copilot for Security, we have two experiences for you to use for Defender ESM. We have a standalone experience in securitycopilot.microsoft.com with a plugin, as well as an embedded experience in Azure while you're using the MDEASM tool, or maybe you're even exploring it. So if you guys would like, you can kind of visit our Learn documentation and learn how to sign up for a free trial, and then explore the tool for 30 days to see what you guys feel like about the tool, how, the insights are, the exposure is, etc. And so in both of these experiences, the capabilities are one-to-one. So if you could do something in the standalone experience, you could also do it in the embedded experience. It is a mirror, if you will, of what is available in both. And so the skill set is kind of on the right here with all of our skills. This will show up if you're in that Security Copilot plugin area, and then you could just type in prompts or capabilities, scroll down to the Microsoft Defender External Attack Surface Management kind of section, and then it'll give you all of the skills available today. We are working on adding more if you and things like that, but this is like the list currently. And so, kind of on the left-hand side, I wanted to give some use cases or scenarios in text. I'll dive into a demo after, but this is kind of like some of the use cases that you can use do with the skill set on the right. One of the bigger ones that I kind of wanted to highlight and mention that we released more recently compared to everything else is this Get EASM assets, which gets assets based on a natural language query. So that helps you convert any question you might have about your external attack surface into a Defender EASM query that you can query against your inventory. So like I mentioned before, we do collect a lot of important, crucial metadata, right? Who is information? What ports are open on it? What services are running on those ports? Web components, vulnerabilities, name servers. There's almost hundreds and hundreds of metadata like data points. And in Defender EASM, one of the key and like most important features, I'd argue, is we provide a very, very extensive querying capability where you can query across any of these metadata, like kind of data points as fields, and then kind of see that help you prioritize what assets you might want to look at first, right? For example, if you're interested in reducing your remote access ports and like all the assets that are associated with that, you want to see those first. So we have, the proper querying for that to support that capability. Uh, there is one thing is that this deep querying capabilities did require a lot of EASM knowledge, and that would be difficult for new customers to kind of quickly get and onboard and immediately get that value of being able to query these more complex queries, which is where Copilot comes in to translate your natural questions into that. So from there, you can kind of determine what assets are running specific technologies and then figure out what vulnerabilities are detected on them, or identify expiring domains and certificates to prevent any sort of risks. Yeah, so think that is the overview I had for the skill set, and now I can kind of dive into a demo for you guys. And while I'm switching over, again, I can pause here if you have any questions, anything like that. If there's maybe a question in the chat, I can answer it now while I switch over.
There is one question from Divya Dogra. How different is this from exposure management?
Yeah, definitely. That's a fantastic question. So, in exposure management, that would provide a more comprehensive view of the inside of your organization, as well as what endpoints in your organization are kind of externally facing. So, EASM or External Attack Surface Management would actually serve as like an input for your exposure management. It's just one of the many tools that you would need to kind of have to make sure that you know what is also beyond your firewall, right? The exposure management tool would maybe tell you what things that you've registered. Maybe you said that, hey, I have this AWS account, I have this Azure account, I have these AD, identities. But the value of external attack surface management is it tells you what you didn't even consider or you didn't know about yourself. And that's where I think it comes into play of like showing you what's beyond that firewall. Does that help answer the question? If not, I can feel free to like jump in again.
Divya, did that answer your question? Thumbs up or thumbs down, or feel free to come off mute if you want us to expound on it. Okay, all good.
Perfect. All right. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, kind of have just a few tabs open with all of our scenarios and things like that, and I'll just walk through them and show you what kind of scenarios we kind of keep, you know, for our Copilot. So one of the main use cases or scenarios for external attack surface management is kind of getting that reporting on any sort of cadence, right? Weekly cadence, monthly cadence, whatever it might be. With this tool, we have a lot of data on your overall risks, right? So what are some critical CV or medium CVSS priority scores with assets on them? Things of that nature. You can use Copilot to quickly extract any sort of information, like key information points, right? And build out a report to send out to maybe your CISO, your leadership, or even share internally amongst you across the team, right? To say like, hey, this is where we're trending towards. This is what we're looking at for like this week, this week, this week, and then from there you can kind of get the change over time, right? So these reporting ones, I kind of put together what I would think maybe someone would might include, right? So we have that overview I kind of mentioned, right? Getting that breakdown based on counts of all of the asset kinds we collect and detect. So these are the main ones of domains, hosts, pages, SSL certs, ASNs, IP blocks, IP addresses, and contacts. And then from in the bottom here, you kind of see some other information about like general, just, hey, this is information on your expired certs, this is information on your domains, CVEs, etc. And when you want to delve maybe more deeper into, let's say, the CVSS, right? It says that there are two assets impacted by at least one CVE ID. So you could also dive into excuse me, get the specific asset details of what is impacted by a certain CVSS score. So here I can see that, hey, this asset portal.fabricum.com is what's being impacted. And I can see that it's a page asset, and the last time it was seen was 7/15, right? This kind of shows that, hey, this asset was seen in that very most recent discovery run. Maybe I want to like delve into it deeper. I can click on this button, and it will take me to the Defender EASM like dashboard page that kind of corresponds with the data that is shown to you. Because alongside, showing off this data in Copilot for Security, we wanted to make it very easy for anyone to quickly confirm, like, hey, the data there is correct. There is no hallucinations happening, things like that. So yeah. And then, you can kind of keep going down any high priority insights, those attack surface insights I was mentioning. Turns out this time it was good that there was none impacting. And then you could kind of see the expired SSL certificates. Again, it gives you that same count from before, 41. and then you can kind of see the certificate and then the common names, expiration dates, associated domains, associated hosts, any sort of maybe key details that we determine with like, hey, this is probably most important for someone looking at SSL certificates. And then it gives you a subset of the list, as well as, again, providing you that link to see the remaining 41, right? So when I click on here, it'll take me to the inventory page. And this is like that deep querying capabilities I was talking about with the query already pre-populated here. And then you could, again, see 41, and this is like what's shown off, right? What are my SHA-1 certificates? Maybe there's an insecure algorithm. Luckily, there's none here currently. And then expired domains, the idea kind of goes through. And then at the end, I would want to maybe put together a summary report of all of the information that was kind of given to me at the beginning. And you notice that it is very verbose here, as this prompting will make your outputs more and more consistent, as well as more and more expected, right? If you want it to be broken down by section, simply asking it will be like the best way to do it, rather than like just saying, write me a summary report for the information above. You providing those key details will help it stay within the bounds of what you're expecting, right? So this would put together that report that maybe I could take this and share it with my team, my leadership, my manager even, right? To say like, hey, this is what we've kind of seen in the past 7 days. Maybe we're trending towards reducing a lot of our CVSS impacted assets, or we actually just completed uh, mitigating any sort of high priority impacted assets as well. And so, this is something that you might want to use on like a weekly basis or a monthly basis or some sort of cadence, right? So what I can do here at the top is actually select all of them and then create a prompt book for this, right? And then name it, external attack surface report. And with this now, it'll create it, sorry, I could describe it. So weekly summary about my attack surface. Um, I can create it. And now when I go here, I could kind of see this prompt book. And then if I wanted to rerun it, I would just have to simply click the submit button. So that can help, speed up the process of running all these prompts over and over again. So that was kind of like that first scenario of reporting that we had. And then another scenario that we kind of also show off is in the vulnerabilities, certain things we do detect is the top vulnerability lists. And with our natural language query, we're able to easily kind of show off that information in Copilot for Security. So here, my question was, what assets are impacted by the CWEs associated with the OWASP top 10, right? I didn't ever specify the 10, however many CVE or CWEs are associated with it. Copilot was able to go out, infer that, hey, this is the list of CWEs that the Soham's looking for. Let me build this query and then show the results. And so for the demo purposes, I did show off the query that is being built here. And you can kind of see this is the state confirmed. This is from our discovery algorithm saying that, hey, we think this is yours. This is like what we believe. So we're going to put in that confirmed state. And then the CWEs that are kind of important to you based on what the OWASP top 10 shows us. And so these are the two assets that were kind of shown up. So it gives you the asset and then again, key information that might be associated with your question. So here, those vulnerabilities, right? It tells you this list, and it also tells you what the web component they're actually associated with it. So you quickly already know that, hey, this jQuery is the target thing that I need to focus on. And then kind of another version of like the question, some other lists are the CWE top 25 weaknesses, right? So this kind of gives you, again, that same building this query and then showing it off here and then showing off what assets are actually impacted by it, key information, things like that. And another thing is, again, to let you confirm or maybe even use this Copilot query as a starting point for your investigation in MDEASM, we provide a quick link to the inventory page where it will already have the query pre-populated for you and shown off here in this like fashion. And same thing for this one. I won't bother clicking it, but yes, that's kind of what we have here. And with this kind of does open up the door for any sort of reporting you might want, right? With this natural language kind of query capability, if you think about that reporting use case and that prompt book that I kind of talked about, right? You can build any sort of prompting or any sort of like chain or series of queries that might be important to you or crucial to you. For example, maybe this OWASP top 10 is what you want to focus on a weekly basis, or the CWE top 25 insights are things you want to focus on a weekly basis, or even something not related to a vulnerability list, right? Maybe something more related to a CVE or things like that. That will let you build out the reporting in whichever manner or fashion you would want to. And so another use case that kind of comes up is in Copilot for Security, there are other plugins, right? There's MDTI, there's Firewall, there's all these other plugins and security knowledge that's kind of put into one area for it to be mingled together and like built on top of, right? So one area that we can kind of enrich or benefit the other, tools and plugins is the vulnerability impact assessment, which is an MDTI prompt book, right? So they have a prompt book to kind of give information on any CVE that you would like, right? So this can go through, it will give you whatever MDTI information is there. So whether that be the short narrative, the description, are there any threat actors or articles? What are the mitigation steps that I might need to take? So where we come in here is that we can give you that external attack surface view, right? This is a gap, I believe, that we fill very, very easily or very, very well of showing you how does this CVE impact me and specifically my external attack surface. And so we can add that in to show you what the two assets are. And again, key information that might be important to you, right? The web components are not the SSL certificates. And when it was first, introduced into your attack surface and when it was last seen, right? On that last scan, was it there or not? Yes or no? The asset type, things like that. Um, and then again, you can take this prompt book, build out a summary report to kind of share with your team members, your extended organization, or even, your leadership. These are just some audiences that might benefit from this sort of report. And then here you can kind of see this impacted assets section where it shows how does this CVE specifically impact my organization. And I kind of wanted to pause here. I know that I threw quite a few scenarios at you guys. So I did want to pause before I keep going onto the other ones to see if there's any questions, comments, anything of that nature.
Right. So far, so good. Thanks, Chris. I'm going to drop another poll about scenarios. If you could like help us understand what scenarios you'd like to see. I think
All
we
right.
can get going somehow. Thanks.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so then another kind of scenario that is supported by our natural language skill is maybe enriching an investigation when you're given maybe a set of IPs. For example, you could be given a set of list of these three IP addresses from Azure Firewall or the WAF team, right? Of saying like, hey, these IP addresses were blocked by this set of rules. I want to maybe dig further into this and saying like, why is it that these were blocked, or maybe these are potentially exposed, and like there's like these are vulnerable to a certain CVE or certain vulnerability, and then you would want to know what is the blast radius of being impacted by that vulnerability. What other assets might be closely related, and then kind of discovering that pseudo attack path, right? A malicious user might have if they were to gain access to any of these IPs. So with that natural language skill, again, what we can do here is find the page and host assets that are associated with, with these IP addresses, right? And then based on that query, it'll give you whatever the results are. It gives you the set of 5 out of the 9, right? And that gives you those details. And again, what you can do here is if you click on this, it'll serve as a springboard for you to kind of start your investigation, right? And here you can see, oh, look, I'm looking for page and host assets, and then this set of IP addresses. already pre-populated for you to make sure that you can quickly kind of pivot into the
হ্যাঁ আমি
specific
কিন্তু
assets that you want to look
আসছি,
into.
আমাকে জাস্ট 2 মিনিট সময় দিন।
Sorry, I think we have someone, Subhendu, who needs to go on mute. Thank you. All right, sorry about that, Soham.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, and then the last kind of use case, this is more so about EASM as a whole, the external attack surface management as a whole, as well as just in Copilot, is that multi-cloud security. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, the switch into, cloud services from COVID, from even before, from that popularity, right? It is more common for people to have, hybrid cloud like organizations where they have some resources on Azure, some resources on AWS, etc., right? Spread across. So one other thing that because uh, MDEASM or Defender EASM does not actually care about, is it in AWS, is in Azure. They only care if it's exposed from the internet. We kind of help with that multi-cloud security use case of showing off, hey, you have these assets on this specific cloud provider. Maybe you need to go check there to see if there's any vulnerabilities associated with it, right? You find out this asset, CRM API.woodgrove has vulnerabilities on it. You would want to know, like, hey, is it running on my AWS account or anything like that, right? To see what your breakdown is. This also helps here with that showing off external assets, AWS, that are running on AWS. So that's here, right? Again, name, some specific details when it was first and last seen, as well as when this web component was first and last detected. And that could be crucial in kind of showing what the, what was the life cycle of this asset and the how long it spent on the specific hosting provider. In a similar sense, kind of want to show does it also works for Microsoft Azure. In this case, right, there was a lot more. It says there's 332 assets. And again, I kind of wanted to just, I've just shown this off a lot, but then again, this reference link can show off with the query already added in a starting point for you to kind of delve into deeper, whichever assets you want to look into. And then similar sense, which of my assets have a Google Cloud as their hosting provider as well. And these are kind of like some of the main use cases for the standalone experience. There is one more I kind of wanted to dive into that is shown off. And sorry about that. Let me share my screen. Okay, perfect. Can you see my screen here okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So this use case is more specific around network devices and hardening. So maybe there's this NSA network guide PDF, and then you want to extract key insights from it. Copilot can do that, give you what are the key insights, things of that nature. If you want to delve deeper into, account authentication, you can also do that. Ask questions about the PDF, right? And once you gain this information about network devices and how that hardening is important, you also would want to know, what information, how does this impact me, right? Do I have any network devices in my external attack surface that would be crucial or important here? And that's where this comes in, right? So I was also mentioning, this we can like plug into other workflows, other playbooks, other prompt books with, other tools. This is where EASM would plug in, right? This is the IP and host again, are they a network device or are they running a network device? And so this kind of shows off that, hey, it built out this query, gave me these assets, and then it also gives you those details as well. And then from here, you can kind of see that, hey, it is the network device that's running is the Palo Alto Global Protect, right? That's like the web component that's running on it. And then you can kind of see from there, we delve into MDTI's skill set of seeing are there any threat actors with this, that are impacting this specific web component. And then from there, you can kind of fuse together external attack surface management, network IT admins, and then as well as threat intelligence to kind of give you that end-to-end flow of figuring out what you need to do maybe with these network devices to make sure they're protected from these threat actors kind of put in here. And they, again, at the end, a report to share with a broader team, maybe a manager if you want to propose that, hey, this is something we need to take on because of these risks, etc. So yeah, those were kind of all of the standalone use cases and scenarios I had like prepared to show off to you guys. Again, wanted to kind of pause again. Do you have any questions, comments on these specific scenarios? Maybe something that you didn't see and you would like to see? Anything of that nature.
We have a few questions in the chat. Before I
For
get
sure.
to them, does anyone want to come off mute and maybe ask some questions? Anyone who is not on mute. All right. So I just want to acknowledge the question. Thank you, Candy, for answering the question on SCUs. Yes, the recommendation is to start with 3. We also have a question from Yusuf. Can you please show us your EASM plugging source configuration?
Yeah,
If you
for sure.
are able to.
Yes, for sure. So that's actually a very good point. In this, for your EASM plugin, you would have to provide a resource name, subscription ID, and a resource group name to make sure that it's pulling directly from the resource you are, want to focus on or target. And so this would be like what the plugin settings look like. Would that help? Was that good enough? I don't know if there was anything additional for me to show.
I think that was good. This is the
Okay.
actual configuration.
Perfect.
Okay.
And I can
Okay.
also show, sorry, go ahead.
No other questions.
Okay, sounds good. And I can also show where that information would be kind of available in your external attack surface. So if you, just to show off again, you need your resource name, subscription ID, and resource group name, right? So then when you pivot into a resource, you can kind of see the resource group, subscription, resource group, resource name is in the top left here, and then the subscription ID. Those are kind of the key inputs that you would need to show off what to kind of give to Copilot for security. And I also wanted to show off again. Sorry, Sefa.
Yes. So sorry for interrupting. So is this also possible in a tenant level? So to roll this out, I see just a subscription indicated, but tenant level.
It is not. We're not currently. It's not currently possible on a tenant level. If you wanted to switch to, I guess, another resource, I'm assuming that's what you're asking. You would have to, again, refill in that plugin information with the other resource that you might have related to Defender EASM. We are working on kind of maybe using your tenant information in the backend to make it more automated. That is something that's coming in the future, but right now, no, we do not, unfortunately.
Understood. Yeah. Looking forward for the future then in the future. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, so I kind of also wanted to show off what our capabilities look like in the embedded experience. And again, to reiterate, our standalone and embedded kind of use cases, scenarios, and skill set are one-to-one. So anything you did see in that standalone experience is possible here that is related to MDEASM specific skills, right? So unfortunately, you would not be able to use MDTI skills or anything like that, but any of the Defender EASM skills that you see, those are all usable in this embedded experience as well. And again, I kind of wanted to show off other use cases surrounding using our natural language skill. So this might be something for open port service. I know that I saw in the chat something about a particular person was interested in, how we have port detections as well. And that's very, very crucial, right? Because if there's an open port, someone malicious could be listening in on it. And then if crucial data is passed through that channel, it could be bad for the organization. And so you might want to see what assets have open port surface running on it. And then here again gives you that data, shows off the open ports and the IP address and the specific details. Again, you can click on this reference page and it will take you to the query. If you want to kind of navigate your way back to the resource, there is this go to resource button right here. So the other final kind of use case I kind of wanted to show off was maybe you have certain hosts and you want to show off what hosts have expired SSL certificates on them. And then again, this kind of gives you that information about, hey, these are expired SSL certs with the hosts. And it gives you the IP address, the SSL certificates, the expiration date specifically, as well as a link to that asset in MDSM inventory. In the future, we are working on making this experience a little bit more seamless of like not having to, click on this link or load a new page, those kind of things. But that's coming in all future work of improving the experience overall. But this is kind of what we have currently. And I did want to reiterate that this, given, our querying capabilities, including, hundreds and hundreds of filters, you can kind of see that on our Learn documents. These questions is only like the tip of the iceberg, right, of what can be possible here. Some other questions people might have is, things about like which hosts have open ports that are, from 20 to 25, and they're running FTP servers. Which hosts resolve to IPv4 addresses, and you might want to focus in on those. Which domains expire in the next 60 days and are associated with this specific organization or this specific register email. The possibilities are very, very like essentially almost endless in terms of what questions you can ask related to your external attack surface. Those are kind of all of the scenarios I wanted to show off. I know I've been pausing a lot, but one last time of pausing for questions on the scenarios that we have, our skill set, things of that nature.
Before I go to the questions, I do want to relaunch the last question poll that I had around scenarios you'd like to see from Defender EASM skill sets in the future. That way we can, factor your needs into our planning. So if you could just give us some of those scenarios that would be helpful for you, that would be great. We do have one question. And again, we did give guidance earlier, but the consumption model for security. Wait, there was from David Broggy. Approximately how many SKUs are used? Again, this goes back to our guidance that we all start with 3 SCUs because each company's requirement will be different. And really, we will have to establish, or you will have to establish a baseline based on your usage. Soham, is that accurate? Do you have anything to add to that?
That'd be accurate. It is mostly based on your usage of like how often you ask these queries, how often you invoke the skills, things of that nature. It is very, specific to the organization and things of that nature.
David had a follow-up question. David, do you want to come off mute?
Yeah, hey, I'm just asking, like, if I experiment with Copilot for security, say I ask it 10 questions, I might hit 1 SCU of usage, right? If I go to the usage mapping chart, right? Or if I hit, say, 20, then I might hit my cap, right? If I was using 3 SCUs. So I'm just curious, when the built-in investigation kicks off, it's inquiring a bunch of questions, right? So, it's probably, say, on average 8 or 10 prompts it's processing. So would a typical investigation use up 1 or 2 SCUs? So if somebody's sorting through, just goofing around and going through 10 incidents in Defender, are you going to hit your cap pretty quick?
I see. I don't think I have the information right now on me for that specifically about like the 10 incidents. Again, I think it would depend on, I guess you're asking for our skill set specifically, correct?
Yeah, I just haven't tried that personally. I've tried individual prompts on my own. Say I was trying to process a bunch of KQL queries and convert them from Splunk to KQL, right? That's just an example where I happened to hit the cap pretty quick after I asked about 20 conversions. And I was just curious. I don't see, when I run it in Defender, I don't see it throwing errors and stuff, but maybe I just didn't run enough investigations in there. So just curious. Trying to be proactive on that question.
I would say to be clear, our Defender EASM, while it is a Defender, it currently is not in the Defender portal. It is in the Azure portal. But to your question about, relative to KQL queries, right? You did say that, you hit the cap pretty fast. I would say I would want to venture on an estimate, or on average, we would, like, per prompt for a EASM skill would be less consumption versus like a, translation from KQL queries. That's
Okay,
what
yeah,
I
that's
can
interesting.
see.
Yeah, I just don't want to go into a demo. I'm running 3 SUs, say, and then, I click through 10 things and then I'm going to hit the cap. So just curious.
Mhm.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Sifa, you can come off
um,
mute.
Yeah, sure. One more question about the prompts and also the result. Is it possible to automate or create a monitoring based on the prompts that is like did in the background somehow, so that we don't need to do it manually? Then we can create somehow a schedule and prompts going through, and the
Yeah.
results are like
Yeah, so what you can do, I guess, assuming that you have only one resource connected, what you can do currently is obviously build out your prompt books, have that. But if you want to automate even more, right, on that scheduled basis, you can also use logic apps. Build out logic apps for our Defender ESM skills. I believe there's a Copilot for security logic app kind of component that you can kind of use. So that would be something you can do, and then maybe after that, email the report out or something of that nature.
Okay, in automation perspectives is really valuable, I will say so.
Mhm.
Also for that. Thank you.
All right. If that is all, I can kind of give a little bit of insights, to what we're doing looking forward. So obviously, one of the main things is improving those existing skills, their performance and response qualities, to make sure that anytime you run the skill, get the prompt response back, it is of the highest quality and you're getting the biggest bang for your buck on that. And alongside improving existing skill performances, also trying to expand our skill set to incorporate any other scenarios that you guys might suggest here. And I would, again, really, really urge for any sort of suggestions you might have for EASMs, kind of data or scenarios you might see. And even if it's related to integrating with other tools or anything like that, that'd be very, very helpful in, guiding our roadmap in the future to make sure it is the best for you guys. As well as enriching our vulnerability-related responses with MDVM, NDTI, and other Microsoft security products, right? To give you a more comprehensive view on any sort of vulnerability, whether it be a CVE, whether it be an insight, whether it be maybe some other security posture thing that isn't necessarily associated, but still considered important. As well as expanding, on, MDEASM's like out-of-the-box prompt books for reporting. I did show off one of the prompt books that we are trying to get added into the future, but again, you can use that feature to create your own custom prompt books using MDEASM's like skill set, things like that. And then also there is like the Learn documentation that kind of contains more details on each of our skills, what's used, as well as the tool in general about the inventory filters as well. So if you do guys have the chance, I would strongly urge you to read those Learn documents, start a free trial, and then mess around with the tool a little bit to see, is this the right fit for you guys? What would you think about the skills and things of that nature? But other than that, thank you guys for coming. Thank you, Justine, for having me and giving me the time to present Defender EASM.